I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. And welcome into JUCK on Bucks. It's your friend JUCK on a Tuesday. Appreciate you so much for joining me. I got the red, white, and blue on. Had a great time at the sister-in-law's birthday party yesterday, but you know who didn't? Rocco, son Rocco, in big trouble with his Nonna. This is the third family function that she was going to be at that he did not show up, and she sent him a very stern message, which Rocco's in trouble with Nonna is a change. It's usually me. That's why I'm smiling. I'm not in trouble this time with my mom. It's my son. So happy about that. Really happy that official visit weekend number 1 is this weekend upcoming. And we have got some massive names. We got to go over those names today because, this is a weekend coming up here that's going to shape the class of 2026. I did the dream class. I would definitely love to wait till after this weekend to do the mock class, but it's already done. So I might as well just go ahead and get the first one out. And then, maybe we'll revise it as we go. But I don't know how I got on this went down this rabbit hole on Monday, but it was something triggered me to start to look at some running back stats. And I've got something to share with you. One of them really surprised me, but we are now entering Ryan Day's 7th season. Urban Meyer coached at Ohio State for 7 seasons. So in the Urban Meyer timeline, we would be entering his final year. That's where we're at in Ryan Day's career, which is crazy when you think about it. It felt like Urban to me, just kind of briefly looking back, like Ryan Day would still have several more years to go to match his tenure. But this would be Urban's last year as Ryan Day heads into year number 7. You had Tressel for 10 years, Cooper for 13 years. It's still amazing to me that he lasted 13. Of course, coaches back then, if they were good coaches, they lasted longer. And as horrible as, his postseason record was and record in the game, Cooper was a good coach. But I did my little list real quick of my favorite running backs under Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, and John Cooper that I'm going to share with you. And just a couple of stats that I wanted to share with you as well while I was looking through this stuff. But for me, under John Cooper, obviously it's Eddie, and I'm sure almost everybody's going to have Eddie, a Heisman Trophy winner, a great guy. I don't want to say a redemption story, but he started his career kind of shaky. Things weren't great, but he was destined for greatness, and he did end up being great. He's number 5 on the all-time yardage list at Ohio State with 3,578. Also 60 receptions for another 500 yards, 43 rushing touchdowns. That's tied for 3rd. Who is the all-time touchdown leader for Ohio State? That's Pete Johnson with 51. Keith Byers in solo 2nd with 45. Eddie George and Zeke tied 3rd, 43 touchdowns. Now, under Jim Tressel, without a doubt, this is not even close. For me, this is my hometown boy, Beanie Wells, who I think is, I don't want to say Beanie's underrated, but he's under-discussed when we talk about Ohio State legends. This is a guy who was the number 1 back coming out of high school, a top 10 all-time rusher at Ohio State, who was top 3 in rushing yards when his career ended. And I just feel like he was so transcendent, the size, the speed, the power, and the nimble feet. He was the most fun to watch of most of these guys we're going to talk about here today. If we're just talking physical ability, if he stays healthy, man, who knows what he could have done. But just such a physically gifted running back. He's as big as Eddie and faster than Eddie. Beanie ran a 10.8 100-meter, 230 pounds. When we talk about these wide receivers, the recruits, when they're under 11 seconds, it's like, oh, wow, he's an under 11-second guy. Beanie did that at 230. These dudes are like 185, 190. And he was a Michigan killer in his freshman year. Busted off that 50-yarder. That backfield, my favorite ever, his freshman year with Antonio Pittman and then Beanie. Beanie takes over as a sophomore. My favorite ever because they're both from Akron. If you didn't, they're from my hometown. Pittman went to Bookdale. Beanie went to Garfield. But then you had his sophomore year. He's over 220 yards in the game. That sophomore year, 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns. But one of my favorite all-time players, who skinny as a beanpole is where he got his nickname, a family of 11 kids. I always love that. My mom's side is a family of 13 kids. So I always think that's so cool. But said he came out of the womb wanting to be a Buckeye. And everything about Beanie, the perfect Buckeye to me. Just love him. I suspect many of you in the Tressel era would choose Maurice Clarett. And I understand it. Also, another number one running back coming out of high school. Tressel ended up getting two of those number one backs in the country coming out of high school, which is pretty ridiculous that you had two of those in Ohio for Tressel, ready-made for him. Of course, he only got 1 year out of Clarett. And when we talk about Clarett, that 1 year, I know a lot of people will say, look, you don't win a national championship without him, and I agree. But I also think, like, okay, if you had maybe at least one other back on that team that wasn't as terrible as the two that played with him, Lydell Ross, who is 21st on the all-time rushing list with 2,300 yards, and Mo Hall, who is in the top 75, those two running backs, the only two in that top 75 that averaged less than 4 yards a carry, the only two out of those 75. So that if you had just a regular average good Ohio State running back paired with him in that backfield or on that roster, would it potentially have, you wouldn't have been so dependent on that guy to win the national championship? I don't know. Either way, I do want to talk about this because when I said that, when I was thinking about this segment, I was just thinking, like, if you just had like a Miyan Williams, would things be different? And I started thinking about how much people used to dog on Miyan Williams. And he's kind of a lightning rod of a running back. A lot of people did not like him, called him slow, etc. And I was looking through these stats, and I noticed his yards per carry average was quite high. And then I decided, why don't I go through all these backs at the top of the list, these top 75 backs, and look at Miyan Williams' yards per carry versus most of these guys. So I went through, and the floor is you got to have 1,000 yards rushing in your career. So of every Ohio State back who's ever had 1,000 yards rushing, how many of them rushed for over 6 yards a carry? And the answer is 8. Just 8 running backs in Ohio State history who rushed for over 1,000 career yards, averaged over 6 yards per carry. And I made another graphic for us. Another one of our fancy graphics here, which you can check out at JUCK on Bucks on Twitter or JUCK_on_Bucks on Instagram. I'm on all the social medias, JUCK on Bucks, but yeah, follow me on Twitter is the one I interact on most. But Miyan Williams, who rushed for 2,000 yards at Ohio State, is one of the 8 guys at Ohio State who rushed for 6 yards a carry or more in his career. Check out this graphic. Now, I think I'm getting better, number one. That's really pretty, isn't it, guys? You can see Curtis in the back there. Curtis, number one. Curtis Samuel. And look how far out in front he is. 7.5 yards. Remember, this is a minimum of 1,000 yards career rushing. Curtis Samuel, 7.5 yards a carry. Obviously, he didn't have as many carries as the guys that are going to be up at the top, but that's still insane. In addition, he obviously had the most receiving yards of all these guys as well. Not just these guys, but all the Ohio State running backs with at least 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, we can just say all. Yeah, all. Most receiving yards ever by a running back. And the only one with 1,000 yards minimum rushing in a career that had over 7.5 or over 7 yards a carry. It's just absurd. At second, you got Zeke with 6.7 yards a carry. That's crazy. Trey on his career, 6.4 yards a carry. My man Robert Smith, who's over my right shoulder here, right under Eddie on the wall there. Robert Smith, 6.2 yards a carry. JK tied with him. Archie at 6.1 yards a carry. Carlos Hyde. I don't know that a lot of people would have gotten that one at 6.1, but it's Miyan Williams and Joe Montgomery that without a doubt would shock some people. I think Miyan Williams is a guy that just took so much crap, and a lot of people really underestimated him. Apparently, that's a fantastic number. Now, I used to argue with my brother about Miyan Williams. I didn't think he was a bad back. I certainly didn't think he was very gifted. But you got to be pretty doggone gifted to average 6 yards a carry and be on that list with those names. You just got to. So clearly, he was right about Miyan Williams. I was wrong. Miyan Williams is a dude, and it's a shame that the way his final year ended there with entering the draft, etc. Like, it was just odd. And then he was at the Woody last year, just hanging out, looked out of shape, but he is playing some football now in a professional league. So good for him. Not in the NFL, but pretty impressive that he made it up there. But let's move to the Urban Meyer era. And most people probably going to pick Zeke. While I love Zeke, just like I love Maurice, all of these dudes just hard-nosed football players. And the guy that I loved the most in the Urban Meyer era was Carlos Hyde. And again, this is not a best back list. This is just your favorite. Like, nobody juiced me up like Hyde. I loved his sense of humor. I just loved everything about him. He was kind of a meathead and a top 10 all-time rusher, one of the elite ones at over 6 yards a carry on his career. So Hyde was it for me. And in Ryan Day's era, it's without a doubt TreVeyon Henderson for me. JK was something special. He was something special. But when we talk about Trey, I really dug my heels in entering last year. We got Quinshawn coming in, and I'm doing this show for the first time. It's probably, 2 and 3 months in, and everybody is talking about, we got a better back coming up from Ole Miss. And I just, was not having that, because I just had this thing, and I still kind of got it, where I'm having a more difficult time, I think, than others accepting these transfers in, as they just don't feel the same to me when I think about them, because I follow these guys from the time they're 16 to the time they commit to Ohio State. And by the time they're seniors, I feel like, man, I've watched them kind of grow up in the program. And then you get these guys that have done that elsewhere, and they come in for 1 year, and yeah, they're Buckeyes and do and say all the right things. And, they all buy in, and I love it, but it just doesn't feel quite the same. And when people were saying we got a better back coming from Ole Miss, I felt like I dug my heels in for Trey. It was offensive to me. And I did do that. And whether I was doing it because I was offended by it or because I really believed it, I think I really believed it. At any rate, I was right. Trey is the better back. And TreVeyon Henderson, the 4th most rushing yards in Ohio State history. Total touchdowns, this dude's got the 2nd most total touchdowns in Ohio State history. Ryan Day, a guy who, when any other fan base is talking about Ryan Day, they always say about his offense, a pass-first offense, which is just not true. But when you look at TreVeyon Henderson and J.K. Dobbins, 2 of the top 4 all-time rushers in the history of Ohio State, a school known for running the ball, and Ryan Day has 2 of the guys on the top 4, that is pretty damn impressive. But that list goes Archie number 1, J.K. Dobbins number 2, Zeke number 3, Trey number 4, Eddie number 5, Beanie Wells number 6, Braxton Miller number 7, J.T. Barrett number 8, Tim Spencer number 9, Carlos Hyde number 10, and we'll just go ahead and go to 12. At number 11, Keith Byers, and at number 12, Antonio Pittman. We went to 12 because we got 2 of my Akron boys up there. All right, let's get to these official visits because I'm pumped. It's that time again. Official visit time. Camps are opening throughout June. We've got camps on the 5th, the 9th, the 10th, the 12th, the 17th, and then we got the 7-on-7 on the 11th and the 18th. What will the stories be this year? Last year we had Jaden Ricketts from Pataskala, and he blows everybody away and gets his offer. Bodpin Miller, a quarterback turned wide receiver, not even turned wide receiver, practicing at wide receiver just at Ohio State's camp. He'd been working on it for a couple months to kind of come debut his skills, and he comes and does it. And he comes back for a second camp, and that second one was just like, all right, the kid's too ridiculous. Brian Hartline pulls him off the field and offers him. Jake Cook coming back multiple times to try to earn that offer. By the way, my buddy texted me the other day and said his kid graduated with Jake Cook. He said he just absolutely looks like a tank. And that's awesome. The last time we saw pictures of him, he just looks so barrel-chested, but they're doing right by him, and it's awesome. So Jake Cook, I think, is actually going to be a dude, man. And that's just awesome because that story was so fantastic, how he ended up at Ohio State and how terrible it would be if he was at Louisville starting next year as a sophomore, how irritated we would all be. But love these stories that come out of these summertime camps. And I think this year we're at least going to have a minimum of one that we don't see coming. There are a couple offensive line candidates, Mason Wilhelm out of Ignatius, Landry Breedy out of Mentor, that we'll, of course, be keeping our eye on. But here are the official visits for this upcoming weekend. And we're just going to go through the 2026 kids. I don't want to throw the 2027s here because it'll just make it confusing. So let's just do the 2026. And we'll start with the guys that are already committed in the class. And this is always important. Who are you going to pair with? You know, the committed guys versus the guys you're really trying to get. So the committed guys that are coming in, just three: Caden Dixon-Wyatt, the wide receiver out of Mater Dei; Corbin Fordham, the tight end out of the Bowles School in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't know why I always say the Bowles School. And CJ Sana out of Olentangy. So we've got a tight end, a wide receiver, and a linebacker. No committed offensive linemen, which I found interesting, but several offensive line visits, starting with Felix Ojo, the number one offensive lineman in the country, has his official visit at Ohio State this weekend, which is obviously a massive one. Out of Texas, a year younger than everybody else in the class, and the number one lineman in the class. Going to be really interesting to see what he has to say coming out of this visit. A lot of people think that this is Texas number one, Ohio State the biggest threat to be able to pull him out of Texas. Boy, it would sure be something. You got all of the Ohio State offensive line, or all the Ohio State offensive staff recruiting him, making contact. And that's what it's about anymore, man. You got to show the most love. They're doing the great job showing the most love. Certainly a lot of love going his way. Now, in addition to Felix Ojo, you got Brett Colajay out of IMG, and this will be his second time up. Came up the first time with his teammate Jake Krull. I love this guy's film. He's an interior guy. He's just nasty. He's nasty. He just is a big, sloppy, angry dude, and he loves football. That's clear. The tape is really fun. I'll maybe show you a little bit when I publish this thing, but like this dude a lot. Now, just didn't feel like his first visit up, Ohio State really made much progress with him. Kind of surprised that he scheduled an official, because everything he said after that and his actions after that just didn't seem like Ohio State was really in it, which wasn't a big deal. It's not like he's some super highly rated guy, but I'm really excited that he is coming up for an official, because somehow that slipped through the cracks for me. But I really like this dude a lot. So we'll see if the Bucks can change course here, or if maybe I just totally misread this and maybe they've been in it a little bit more than I thought the whole time. Clearly in it enough for him to get an official up here. And that would be great to get him in this class. And our final offensive lineman coming up is Aaron Thomas, coming up out of Arizona. Aaron Thomas, 6'6", 300. He is ranked, as a 3-star, maybe the 560th player in the country. And the reason he's ranked like that is because he was a defensive lineman who has just played now 1 year of offensive line. But the offensive line film, against granted not great competition, shows a kid with a ton of athleticism, a ton of size, an anger streak. He knows how to use his body. And it's a dude who looks like he has a huge high ceiling, a lot of potential left to squeeze out of him. And he loves the Buckeyes. Well, half the side of the family loves the Buckeyes. Grandma is from Cleveland, and a bunch of his kinfolk are from Cleveland. He was so excited. Ohio State was the big program that offered him first before Ohio State. He was talking to schools the likes of Washington and Wisconsin and that kind of ilk. And now he's got offers from Texas and Texas A&M. So Ohio State was the first big school. And, he's one of those guys that feels good about that. I've talked to him several times. This dude really likes Ohio State. A lot of people think Texas A&M is just going to get him. Florida State also in on this because his dad was an offensive lineman at Florida State. I don't think they're really in on it. I think Florida State has done so much damage to their image based off that season last year and Mike Norvell's whole regime. I'm just not worried about it at all. This kid's a good athlete, man. Got a nasty streak, good feet, obviously got the pedigree in his family. He's big, he's strong. I would love to see him in this class, man. Absolutely, for sure. So Aaron Thomas, Brett Colajay, Felix Ojo are 3 offensive linemen that'll be in this weekend. Now, not only do we have the number 1 offensive lineman with Felix Ojo coming up, we've also got the number 1 running back in Savion Hyder. And Savion Hyder out of Virginia is down to Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, and Georgia. There are people who are currently saying that Tennessee is trending for him. I've always felt like Michigan was the one position best for this because of his relationship, not only with Tony Alfrod that goes back from when Tony was at Ohio State so much. I mean, it was a strong enough relationship that when Tony went to Michigan, Savion didn't really have good things to say about Ohio State at the time. Obviously, Coach Locke got the Buckeyes right back in that. But you have the existing relationship with Tony, and then you bring in the money situation with now Michigan has the money. Do they want to go spend for a clearly the number 1 back in the class to pair with Bryce Underwood? They're not going to spend big money on everybody, but will one of these 4 programs, when we look at these 4 programs, there's 2 of them that might throw a ridiculous offer out there. That's Tennessee and Michigan. Ohio State and Georgia will not. But they'll be in the stratosphere if it's fair market value for the number 1 guy. But one of them could go crazy and just say, no, we're going to get this guy at all costs. Tennessee has been known to do that. Obviously, we've lost to them with David Sanders Jr. because of a reason like that. And then you got Michigan, who we just saw with Bryce Underwood. So they have been known to do something like that. Will they do it when it comes to Hyder? I don't know. I think the Buckeyes are willing to meet the, go to a spot that we're not usually used to seeing them go to get Hyder. I think they really think that they see the benefits of having a dominant back. And this has been a position and a topic that's kind of like, there's many places for a while, we've seen like backs are a dime a dozen. Don't really care that much. The top 20 backs are all the same. And then you see just how beneficial it is to have a couple elite guys. And I think the Buckeyes would really, really love to get a guy of his caliber in this class. So came up last time over the spring and had a long conversation with Travion Henderson, also a 5-star running back out of Virginia. They chilled out, watched practice. He seemed to have a really good time. His mom has done a really good job of asking questions, not tipping their hand. I don't think anybody really knows much about this at all, where he's leaning. His mom kind of reminds me of Monica Jacobs in the way she's handling things, the way that that's Paris Johnson's mom, the way that his recruitment was handled. She's very involved and just they know what they want, and I think that makes for a really good player. Obviously, Paris was a really good player. So excited to see what happens coming out of this one. All right, in my dream class, I had tight end Corbin Fordham. He'll be in for his official, and joining him will be Max Sutter out of Illinois, who joined him on the dream class. Max Sutter is one of the top 6-7 tight ends in the country, down to Alabama, Penn State, Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Illinois. So he's from Illinois, and he's got Ohio State and Penn State on there, and then he's got the couple SEC schools. I think he'll stay in the Midwest, and if he doesn't want to stay at Illinois, Ohio State would be the closest one to home. Can Keenan Bailey land another tight end to go with Corbin Fordham, like he landed Brody Lennon to join Nate Roberts, like he was able to bring in Max Clare on top of a loaded tight end room? If he does, it's just totally on, man. Because when we look at Nate Roberts and we look at Brody Lennon, I think Brody Lynn is a freak athlete. I think Nate Robert is a guy who, if he wasn't playing football in Oklahoma, would have been a top 5 or 6 tight end in the class. At one point he was, but just steady drop down out of the top 15. He wasn't even a top 15 tight end. So we feel like, man, this dude's been recruiting great, but by the rankings, he really has not. I don't give a damn about the rankings. I can see on the film what Nate Roberts is. The dude's a total stud with the measurables as well. Not quite the top end speed, but this guy's going to be a really, really good weapon, really good pass catcher, really good blocker. So I'm thrilled about it. Brody, we haven't seen him in a Buckeye uniform yet. He'll be in soon. But when we look at what Keenan's been able to do, if he can land Max Sutter, a top 5 tight end, with Corbin Fordham, who, again, another one of these underrated guys who I think Keenan did a great evaluation on, then it'll officially be like, all right, man, we're going to get the ball rolling. And as long as he's the tight end coach at Ohio State, it's going to keep on rolling because the guy is just elevated everything in the tight end room. I love it. I've been someone who's been clamoring for some more tight end play. Take those layups, get us those easy first downs that these lesser teams always seem to get against us with the tight end. So very happy with Keenan. Would love to have Max Sutter in the class. At safety, coming in, one of the favorites in my class was a real sleeper. Ohio State offered him. Again, another guy that Ohio State was his first big offer, and he really appreciates that. It's Donovan Webb out of the Dallas area. And since Matty G offered him, of course, the attention came and the offers came. Texas is an offer. He's got a slew of official visits scheduled. Kid's a great athlete. He's a thumper. He can cover. He's a hell of a kick returner. Like his personality, really like his tape. Of course, Braylon Womack is the number 1 target on the board at safety here, and you get him in the class, that's 3. So you're all good. We know that Braylon will announce in August. When does Donovan want to announce? How does that affect his decision? I don't know, but really nice to have in the fold. Let's get to defensive line. We'll start with defensive tackle and Preston Carey out of IMG. This is one of the 6'4", 300-pounders that I was kicking around on the dream class. I wanted my big guy, and I was choosing between 2, Preston Carey or Cam Brickle. Cam Brickle out of IMG in Philadelphia. Preston Carey's in Florida. Cam Brickle is 6'2", 300 pounds, so he's a little bit shorter. In watching both of these guys tape, to me, Cam Brickle's just a little bit more of what I'm looking for, but both are really, really excellent. I'd be thrilled with either one. A man in the middle who can eat up double teams and potentially make a play here or there on the ball carrier. So 2 really high-level guys, I think, despite their rankings, with Preston Carey's maybe top 300 and Brickle's maybe top 400. They're the dudes we need. There's somebody that can fill that role that we are losing out on with Jameer Perez. Just a big dude who can eat up a double team. We need a couple of guys like that in the system, and you got to have a few, and we currently don't have any. So be very happy to get either one of them. They will both be in town together. Now, we got some big dogs coming in at edge, and we'll start with the man whose jersey I will have custom made immediately upon signing at Ohio State, and that's Luke Waffle out of Princeton, New Jersey, the Hun School. And you guys obviously have heard me talk all about Luke Waffle. I'm sure you've heard about him everywhere you've looked. The dude's just got one of those kind of looks that everybody goes, whoa, look at that monster. And he plays like that too. But his brother's at Penn State. You've got some other schools involved like Texas, USC, Florida, Penn State, and Ohio State. Those are his schools. At 6'6", he looks like Jack Sawyer right now. He plays with a bad attitude. He's quick. He's got long arms. He's an intense football player. He's a really smart kid. Doesn't have a personality quite like Jake Cruel, who will also be in, who is a top 10 edge rusher, just like Luke. Jake Cruel is a borderline 5-star, but he's 6'2.5", 220, whereas Waffle, 6'6", 245 to 260. He's a strong side defensive end. Cruel, more of your modern day edge rusher kind of dude that you can play in versatile roles that we've not seen really have a big role at Ohio State yet, but we think we will with Patricia. So he's 3 inches shorter, 20 pounds lighter, also a lot quicker, with more burst and better technically than anybody else in this class at that position. Here's a look at him working out with Brandon Jordan, the defensive the rushing coach, pass rushing specialist that we had in last year, who was working with Jack and JT before the draft. This is him working with Jake Cruel, and you can see just the way he moves. And this is really, really fast, twitchy movement here for a kid coming out of high school. This is really, really good, good stuff. And you can see it on the film as well. It's the burst, it's the twitch. The dude's legit, and he's really interested in Ohio State. This is a real deal. So on this top 5, we've got Ohio State, we've got Florida, where he's from, we've got Texas and Oklahoma, then we've got Colorado. Is this a player that a place like Colorado breaks the bank for? Do they have the bank to break? I don't know. Oklahoma, I've heard floated. A lot of people think he really is leaning towards Oklahoma, but he didn't really feel like a real Ohio State candidate when he first came up. Just came up for that one visit during the spring, and he was late. I talked to him. His flight was delayed. Like, he didn't even have much time here. And just like that, he scheduled his official, Ohio State in the Final 5. So he was clearly more interested than he let on. And I think the Buckeyes are absolutely in this. We'll see if he makes my mock class, but he just missed my dream class. No, he made my dream class. Yeah, he made my dream class because I just love him. I love him. The dude's great. Now, he reminds me of Caden Davis, his personality, which that's not great. He's a little cooler than Caden Davis, but the minimum goal for the Buckeyes is to land one of these top 10 edge rushers, and that is Luke Waffle, Carter Meadows, and Jake Cruel. Carter Meadows and Luke Waffle are both 6'6". Jake Cruel's 6'2.5". If you got your pick there, you're probably going to go with the bigger dudes, but you can't go wrong with all three of them. I mean, we're talking about, this is a borderline 5-star. A hell of a prospect. I've talked about my concerns with him, and that is, has he maximized the amount that you can squeeze out of his talent because he is so fundamentally sound in high school already? But I think that his athletic ability trumps that. So let's get to our last visitor. Our last visitor coming in to hang out with CJ Sana, Xavier Griffin, the number 1 or 2 linebacker in the country, depending on where you look. Committed to USC from Georgia, originally from Alabama, an Alabama fan. Immediately scheduled his official visits when he decommitted with USC. One of them was Ohio State, which surprised the heck out of us. And then it surprised us more to learn that James Laurinaitis had already been talking to him and had been visiting him. So right now, the Bucs are squarely in this, and it's either him or Atkinson. I don't care which one. Sure love to have one. We're talking about the super modern age, twitched up, insane athlete kind of linebacker. The type of guy that we all thought we were getting with CJ Hicks. That's what he is. And that's what Tyler Atkinson is. So it would just be absolutely fantastic to get either one of them. My pick would be Tyler. But if the consolation prize of not getting Tyler is landing Xavier Griffin, who currently looks like an Alabama lean, it would be thrilling. If he goes to Alabama and Tyler Atkinson goes to Georgia, it's going to be quite a bummer. But if you were betting money right now as to where everybody's going to land, like, that's probably where the smart money is. I refuse to believe that James Laurinaitis isn't going to beat one of those two out for one of these two. I just got to have faith in my man JL. And that concludes our official visit list. All right, let's get to our daily segment of As the College Football World Turns, the new playoff format that is being proposed, causing a lot of angry talk, causing a lot of stupid talk. And all of this is kind of stupid to me because we all know that we're going to the same place no matter how it happens in between. And that final result is always going to be the same. And that is whatever the Big Ten and the SEC want it to be. And that's why I wish we could just go ahead and fast forward to that. They're dead set on the automatic bids. The rest are against this. Ross Dellinger reports all these conference commissioners, they're all kind of surprised. What are they surprised for? They're surprised that the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to dig their heels in and force through this thing that the rest of them don't want. This is the same people that signed a document that gave the SEC and the Big Ten the power to make all the decisions. But it included the language that the SEC and the Big Ten have to have meaningful consultation and collect input from the other conferences. Okay, that means listen to you. They did. Now they're going to jam in what they want. I'm surprised that these very smart people are really not under the impression that this was always going to be whatever the hell they wanted when they signed that document. What did you think meaningful dialogue meant? That's not veto power. Otherwise, it would say veto power. Well, now they're taking legal action, some of them, that to find out whether or not the Big Ten and the SEC are satisfying the agreement as it's worded in that term there that I just read. They certainly are. They're listening to what you have to say, and then they're going to do whatever the heck they want because you all signed an agreement allowing them to do whatever the heck they want if they listen to you first. So they listen to you. Now, can we just get to where we're going, please? These guys are morons, man. These guys are morons, but not quite so much as this guy. Now, this guy, his name's Joel Klatt. He's been telling us for years. In fact, it's the intro of his show. We're at the dawn of the golden era of college football. College football has never been better. That's not the way I see it. I don't think that's the way most college football fans see it. But this dude went through the entirety of the proposal that I laid out yesterday for the 16-team format. The one that gets, 13 and 16 over here and then 14 and 15 play over here in a play-in weekend. Now, why would anybody be for this? Of course, they're for it, the ones that stand to make the money, because this is creating an extra round. And remember, they create another extra round in conference championship by each getting 2 extra play-in games. So really, they created 2 extra rounds of the playoffs to make more dollars, which is why the commissioners are for it, which is why they want to do it instead of a 16-team bracket that just goes from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2, which is why Joel Klatt is for it as well. And he went through and explained everything about this and laid it out. And I understand, whatever, he can be for it. There were a couple things he said that I found kind of preposterous. Like, for one, the number 1 and number 2 seeds that are already getting the bye in round 1 and the bye in round 2, he wants them also to play the worst seed when they finally have to play a game and get a home game. That is quite the advantage for winning a conference. You get 2 rounds of byes, then you get a home game and play the worst team remaining in the playoffs after those first 2 rounds are played. A little bit excessive on the bye. But here's where I get a problem, man. I've been railing on for a while about the need for the at-large bids. To make matters worse, a 14-team bracket that leaves only 1 at-large bid kills the incentive to win out-of-conference games. So a 16, I was like, all right, if we're going to expand, we'll go to 16, 3 at-large bids, and then there's extra incentive to win out-of-conference games, and we don't lose the importance of those. He goes through everything point by point and agrees with it all. And the only thing he disagrees with are the 3 at-large bids. He wants it to be 14 with just 1 at-large bid. So the only thing that can save the out-of-conference games, he wants to take away. In his reasoning, if you have that in there, people will continue to stop scheduling out-of-conference games. Here's the problem with that. While it's true, we've seen the Nebraskas of the world, Lincoln Riley's, try to cancel out-of-conference games because they want to stack up as many wins as possible and not test themselves. You will always have some of those. You will also always have some like Clemson and Dabo and other schools who want to go play those games and not only test themselves, but give themselves an opportunity to get the positive out of those out-of-conference games. You're always going to have some of these and some of these. What you're never going to have, if you take away the at-large bids, is any meaning to any of them. So it's you either get some that have meaning if you have the at-large bids, or zero of them mean anything if you have no at-large bids. He just can't see it yet. He'll see it. They always do, and it's always too late. I've yet to hear one of these talking heads with a huge platform discuss the damage that having no out-of-conference bids or no at-large bids is going to do to our out-of-conference games. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. It's all tied into the at-large bid. It's either they mean more with 3 at-large bids, or they mean absolutely nothing with 1 at-large bid that will always go to Notre Dame. Now we've also got private equity firms potentially getting involved. The Big 12, the ACC, they had a call earlier this month with Smash Capital, and that's a private equity firm that wants to start a super league, promising a $9 billion cash infusion to those conferences. The Big 10 and the SEC don't like the super league ideas. Obviously, it was never going to fly with them because it would diminish the power that they worked so hard to get. They would be giving it back and making it an even playing field. Why would they ever do that? They wouldn't, which is why that goofy super league was dead on arrival. But we're clearly exploring private equity here. Administrators at the Big Ten also had a call last week from 4 different firms who were all jockeying to purchase a piece of the league. So the weirdest, most preposterous sport in the world. We've now got college sports teams trying to be wooed by private equity firms. We've got different playoff formats being floated in all different directions. We're fighting over the rules and the formats. Meanwhile, the ones who are making the formats are the ones who stand to make the most money by making it absolutely not what we want. It's college football. The thing about it is, like, it's always been the craziest, most bizarre sport in the world, the way it's always been run. Like, we talked about the polls, right? We had the national championship, and it was never a sport that was even supposed to have a national championship. It's just, it's a regional sport. And we used to have those things voted on by, 6 different things that organizations that wrote, and they read highlights of games. They read the ticker tape, and they voted on national championships. It's just always been the most bizarre, crazy sport. And we're now on the never-ending march to make it a professionalized sport. The SEC also gave Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, permission to leave the NCAA should he think it's the right move. So that's also on the table. It's just a bizarre thing. The thing is, like, you would think, as someone who talks about college football and enjoys talking about college football, that I'd be excited. But the truth is, you guys don't watch this. You don't watch the videos that I talk about this about. I just talk about it to vent about it on my own. You don't even like it. You've probably already turned this off as soon as I started. So anyway, what a bust of a show on Memorial Day. I'll have to remember that next Memorial Day. I think Memorial Day's show got maybe 20% of the normal audience. So yeah, that was not worth the time to put that one together. But hey, you live and learn. Only my second Memorial Day doing the show. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. We're not going to do any comments today because, like I said, I didn't get any. Hey, do me a favor. If you didn't leave a comment yesterday, but you normally do, I want double today. Double, and I need some likes and some subscriptions. And I'll need a Apple review from only the best JUCK guys. The best JUCK guys, only the best. I need an Apple review from you guys. All right. That'll do me for, guys. Appreciate you all so much. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you soon. JUCK on Bucks out.